What is going on, Lucid fans? Welcome back to Financial Journey. So today I want to talk to you about the latest 14A form that was submitted, what it's truly saying, and everything else that you need to know. I'm going to go over all of that, but first make sure you guys hit that thumbs up and subscribe. Always greatly appreciate that. And without further ado, let's get right to it. So as you can see, after hours on Friday, Lucid did submit their preliminary 14A, and in this document right here, in other words, is just their shareholder meeting. So in this document, it has the 2022 annual report, 2023 proxy statement, a good letter to the stockholders by Peter, so that's a nice touch. I don't believe that was on the last shareholder meeting, but this upcoming meeting is going to be held on April 24th, 2023 for investors as of record date February 28th. So in other words, you had to have had at least one physical share as of February 28th in order to vote on these things. If you didn't, don't worry about it, because I'm going to be live streaming this so you can kind of participate, but unfortunately you can't really vote. There is 6 points, 5 of which that you can actually vote on. First one is to elect 9 nominees as directors to serve up until 2024 for the annual meeting. The number 2 is to ratify the selection of Grant Thornton LLP as our independent registered public accounting firm, and this is up until December 31st, 2023. Number 3 is to approve on an advisory basis the compensation of our named executive officers. So that one's a little bit more of a touchy subject per se. Number 4, to approve on the amendment of the Lucid Group Inc. amended and restated 2021 stock incentive plan. This one I actually do like, so I'm going to touch on that in a second. Number 5, to approve the amendment and restatement of the company's current certificate of incorporation. So this is to have that third amendment there added at least. And number 6 is a little bit more of a gray point, but it says to conduct such other businesses as may be properly come before the annual meeting or any subsequent or adjournment thereof. So of course this is where they can do a lot of subsequent meetings if necessary to vote on, meaning potentially mergers or things like that. So just be aware of that. But getting right to it, number 1 right here, and I like this touch right here. Keep in mind on previous earnings, I don't think they had this as well, where you can easily just click it and it goes there. But once again, proposal number 1, election of directors. So this is where people differ. A lot of people and diehard investors really overly look at this too much. Me in particular, I'm not a big fan of selecting directors. Of course, directors do have a very big role and a lot of power, but for me to go through and, for instance, kind of see someone's history to make a judgment to see if they are actually going to be a good fit for the bigger picture kind of stuff, that's not something I generally like to do. But once again, have at it. You can read through a lot of these people's kind of history. Generally speaking, I think the board as of right now, how it stands, so the individuals that are currently on it, are for the most part pretty good. So just be aware of that. Obviously, like I said, and I always say, these videos are for entertainment purposes only. I'm not a financial advisor either, so just be aware of all of that. But moving on from that, just scrolling back up here, and I'll go to proposal number 2. This one, I don't think anyone will have any issue with. So Grant Thornton LLP has been with Lucid, I believe, since 2020, October 13th. So in general, I don't think anyone's going to have any issue with them being extended up until December 31st, 2023. So this one is a little bit more of a no-brainer in my opinion. And then moving on to proposal number 3. So approval on an advisory basis, the compensation of our named executive officers. And in here though, this little snippet is very, very small. And oddly enough, they don't really refer you to any part in the document. But what you have to do is you kind of have to go back over here and look at the index, for instance. So you do see, for instance, the executive officers, their compensation, and a lot of this is going over their 2022 results. And for the most part, they just use that as a benchmark and just to increase incentive. So there's no actual true numbers in this regard. So once again, that's just something you need to factor in. But the executive officers, just so you are aware, Peter Rawlinson, Sherry House, Eric Bach, and Michael Bell. So of course we already do know that. In this document though, it goes over the breakdown of their pay, which is base salary, annual cash incentive, and long-term equity incentive. So just be aware of that. So definitely go through that. It has a lot of good information that did occur for 2022, such as even how much they got paid as a base salary, such as right here, Peter Rawlinson's $575,000 for 2022. But in this document as well, it does say that it's kind of for the most part within their group of peers. So very similar, such as for instance to Tesla and Boeing and various other companies. So in general, I think it's a pretty standard document or pretty standard stuff to go over. When it comes down to this though, so number 4 right here, so approval of the amendment of the Lucid Group amendment and restated 2021 stock incentive plan. So what I actually really like about this, in this document, of course, it has the Annex A that it does refer in here, I believe. So in here, it says to go to Annex A. So in Annex A, it goes over the actual original 2021 stock incentive plan. And what I actually like about this is if you want to have skilled labor, you want to pay them accordingly. Of course, don't expect an annual or basic individual to earn the same amount as Peter, but it is fair to say that they need to be given a fair amount of compensation. So in this document, I think this is very, very good. I'm not going to go over this document in depth because this whole thing is huge, but I am very much for paying actual individuals and staff accordingly. So I think in general, that's a fairly good point that people might disagree with. And the final thing that is going to be voted on is right here. So approval of the third amendment and restated certificate of incorporation. So in this document, it goes to you and it tells you to go to Annex B. So once again, you kind of go back and forth a little bit, but Annex B right here. Annex B, it makes it a lot simpler than, for instance, Annex A to really highlight some of the changes. So in this document right here, there's actually nothing that really stands out that is substantial changes. Of course, I could be wrong, but I think in general, it's pretty standard stuff. Of course, I'm not a lawyer and a lot of this stuff is very much formal stuff, but it makes it very easy for potentially to kind of go over what was in fact changed. One thing to note in this document though, because it does show and indicate that the PIF did inject roughly about $915 million in December, but in this document, it kind of gives them a deadline or at least a kind of a blocking out period, meaning they cannot sell any shares for 6 months after they inject more money. So just be aware of that. So that's a lockup period, another one that is being completed or added onto this. So just be aware of that. That's the only thing that stood out to me when I read through this. And of course, I actually did stop on here for a specific thing because it goes to show that potentially now, by them amending this, it says that any director can be removed, obviously with a majority vote. So potentially, maybe they might be amending this for some specific reason. If there is one of the directors that maybe isn't really living up to the expectations, they can actually boot them out. Of course, I think this would be because of the PIF not physically liking them. So just be aware of that. But like I said, in this document, it goes over a lot of the changes, but clearly, like I already showed you, there's not too much to really talk on. It's only about 2 pages. So again, it is what it is. Let me know your thoughts on this in the comments below. Generally speaking, I don't think that there is any substantial kind of things to worry about. This not really anything really risque per se. A lot of these are pretty standard stuff. So I think in general, by them moving it up, because I think this was last time in June or July. So for them to move this up, I think a lot of people were anticipating some risky stuff to be voted on. But a lot of this is just pretty standard stuff. So like I said, just nominees. So again, basic stuff. The actual accounting firm. So again, pretty basic. This one is probably the most risque potentially, just as far as the executive officers and how much they earn. This one, I don't think anyone will ever have any issue with the stock incentive plan. So that's helping the general individuals for incentivizing them to kind of stay on board. And I think that's how you do get good skilled labor. And of course, this does not actually work for any executives. So this is just lower level employees and such. And number 5 right here is pretty basic. So I think there was a couple of changes that people need to be aware of. Nothing that would really stop someone from investing in Lucid. So in general, as much as it's fun to participate in shareholder meetings, this one might be a little bit more boring. But of course, I'm not a financial advisor, so let me know your thoughts on this in the comments below as well. If you did read through this, if there's anything that stood out to you per se, such as maybe the point number 3, what was your take on it basically? So let me know your thoughts on all of that in the comments below. Hopefully everyone is having an amazing weekend thus far. So don't forget to also hit that thumbs up and subscribe. Always greatly appreciate that. And without further ado, let's make a lot of money on Lucid.